Hello everyone, and thank you for making time for my presentation. My name is Kokil, Jaidka. Slides and further details about the study are available at my website under CV and slides. The paper develops and validates dictionaries to measure discussion quality in English social media posts discussing politics. And here's the first thing we need to discuss, which is the word deliberation itself. Deliberating on politics is something very specific, which means the process involved when a group of people are trying to arrive at a certain consensus. In that sense, we may say that thinking of social media as a platform for deliberative discussions might be a bit wrong. Definitely not the use case that was intended, but the concepts or the principles underlying deliberation are still useful to judge the quality of the discussions happening on social media. And that's why this study is basing its coding scheme in these principles of deliberative discussions. But then two questions arise. What is a good measure of discussion quality? What exactly are these principles of deliberation that we need to look at? And then how do we frame a method that's good for social media, because it needs to be scalable so that it can measure a lot of social media, and it has to be generalizable because different social media platforms have different social and political and discussion norms. And we don't know whether a method that's trained on one context will suitably generalize to other contexts. So those are two big problems, and the solution that I propose is to get a large sample of data annotated. It's from a single context, admittedly. Get annotated data from other studies as well, which have also looked at the same problem and have also applied the principles of deliberative discussions to annotate social media posts. And train, test, validate works something like this. I get the sample of data annotated, I train machine learning models, and I evaluate it for internal validity on held out data using tenfold cross-validation. Then I also have annotated data from other studies, which is useful for evaluating external validity. So I've already trained my models and I see how they perform on data from a different context that they've obviously never seen before. Based on these findings, I can make inferences about model generalizability and about discussion quality, specifically political discussion quality in these different platforms, right? Okay, so this was the training data I had, which was replies to US political representatives on Twitter. I used a standard approach that has been applied in previous work to collect these replies. And from the overall data set, a sample of 6,000 was annotated by 4 coders each for different qualities of discussion, which I will go into in a bit. And data with at least 75% agreement was used to train machine learning models. This is quite standard. 75% agreement is quite standard in NLP papers. As I said, these ideas are grounded in Habermas and Castile's conceptualization of political discussion as having both analytical and social components. So there are 3 main facets in the literature, and they have been operationalized in a few different ways. The 3 main facets are incivility, argumentation, and interactivity. Incivility is name calling, exaggeration, and threats. Argumentation is either constructiveness, where people are trying to find common ground and a solution, or justification, where people are providing evidence or providing their personal opinion or their personal stance on an issue. And interactivity is whether or not the discussion is reciprocal and whether people are showing empathy and respect to each other. So altogether, given these different facets, there are in fact 5 different facets of discussion quality, and one called relevance, which I've also measured, simply because in most of these studies we tend to take the relevance of a comment to a political discussion for granted. But in a social media discussion, that's really not the case. So it's a good idea to put in a check for whether or not something is even relevant to the topic at hand. Let me tell you about the validation data. The validation data comprises 7 data sets from different sources. Well, this one was a Twitter data set. This was a Facebook and YouTube data set. This was comments posted during live streams. This was a face-to-face discussion data set. This is comments posted to a Facebook page. This is an online political discussion, and this is finally comments posted to political discussions in the Reddit CMD community. The whole purpose of collecting so many diverse data sets was to see if these classifiers indeed generalized. And you'll notice that while the training set comprised common people talking back to a political representative, in a lot of these cases, it's actually people who are talking amongst each other. So even the context of who the speakers are is different in these data sets, which makes things even more interesting. So I'm going to quickly cut to the results. Validation on unseen data shows high predictive performance in terms of tenfold cross-validation. Now, high is a flexible word, but definitely this is comparable to other state-of-the-art machine learning models that have been reported and have been used in the research community. The accuracy on average is 78%. The area under the curve, which is the number of positive and negative cases correctly identified, is 64.3%. And the precision, that is the number of positive cases correctly identified, is 63.3%. This is the external validation, a lot of bars. We can focus on the black bars, which provide us with the average results. So we see constructiveness is kind of low, and these are the precision results. Justification is pretty high. Reciprocity is pretty low. The best performing ones, in fact, are relevance, incivility, and justification. And then a close fourth is constructiveness. So here's a summary of findings because I'm short of time, but I'd be happy to show you more examples in the full slide deck available on my website. Measurements of empathy and respect do not generalize as well as other facets. There's a high variance in predicting constructiveness, but the predictions for justification and incivility are kind of stable. And the role of technological affordances in setting deliberative norms means that depending on whether or not discussions are asynchronous or synchronous, anonymous or non-anonymous, moderated or unmoderated, all of these things have a role to play, and they seem to affect both the quality of predictions that we're getting and also then the generalizability of the models that were trained on Twitter data. Thank you so much for your time, and I wish you a wonderful rest of the day. If you're on the job market, please do apply to one of our 6 open positions at the National University of Singapore. We're looking for great colleagues like yourself, so we look forward to your application. Thank you.